Buckle up. Welcome to Musicians and Beyond, where we bring you the backstage info on the life, lyrics, and long journeys of the music industry. In studio, I am here with co-host Mark Lawhorn. I am John Sarabian. We have an incredible guest coming up, but first, Mark, what's been going on this week? Anything good?
It's just been busy getting back into the regular schedule of things, getting rid of, putting the summer behind us and spending more time at home with the kids and the wife and at the hockey rink.
Awesome.
How about you?
We had a busy night the other night. We had Musicians and Beyond was the co-host of a VIP Extreme Aerosmith after party the other night, thanks to Johnny Caron of Fenway Johnny's. Yeah, and there was some big names that came through there. The whole band Extreme came. Aerosmith did not because they're going on tour and they're afraid of the that. It's called COVID, I think, something like that. They're afraid of that. Yeah. And, we had Ernie Bach come through. We had Paul Gary, the manager of Godsmack. So it was a success.
Yeah, check out the pictures on the Facebook page and Instagram. You'll see that, as John said, John Caron hosted the After Hours party along with John and Musicians and Beyond. Well-attended, fun time, but West End Johnny's and Fenway Johnny's. If you haven't been there, get out there. 2 great restaurants, one at the Garden and one at the Park. So make sure you get out there.
It was awesome. It was the closest 100 friends that we had. So it was good. Hey, Mark, who's that guy? Who's this guy? Some guy's trying to break in the studio here.
Is this the engineer?
Who's this guy?
Wait, I heard you guys were having technical difficulties.
We were having technical difficulties, and we called in the lefty.
Taylor, look who...
am I interrupting?
Taylor, look who showed up here.
I heard you guys were in trouble, so I ran
man.
as fast as I could.
Gary, what are you doing in here?
Buddy.
We got Jerry Davila here from another fantastic podcast. It's another Sunday
podcast.
And he is the one who hooked us up with Taylor. Thank you, Jerry. That was awesome.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Jerry.
I heard you were experiencing some trouble, so I rushed right over to,
No, Mark and I are the only trouble in this studio. So we're honored. We got this guy, Taylor Bloom. He's currently from Upper Manhattan, New York, and he's got a busy schedule. Yeah, Taylor, welcome to Musicians and Beyond.
Oh, man, thanks, you guys. What a pleasure. And what a pleasure to have this special guest, Jerry.
Right.
How you doing?
Hey, man.
Yeah, this is going to be fun, man. You're into a little bit of everything. You really started out with music, and then your acting career is starting to blow up.
Yeah. I've been playing music and acting since I was a little kid, and over the years I've kind of alternated back and forth, dipping my toe in each area as I go through life. The music as a means of expression took a sort of a front seat for me during the height of the pandemic. And now that things are sort of getting back to normal, thank goodness, I'm sort of focusing a little bit more intently on the acting side of things, and that's been great as well.
Cool. You get a pretty good history behind you with between your music and your acting. One of the biggest things that you've done, recently, you were Paul Simon in the Simon and Garfunkel story. It's actually an international act that goes around. I'm sure there's more than one Simon and more than one Garfunkel, but you were the guy, like the main man.
Yes, yeah, and that show was an amazing experience. As you mentioned, you're right. There are like multiple Pauls and multiple Arts, and I can tell you that next to them and next to the rest of the band, I'm really sharing some rarefied air on that stage. Like everyone up there is, they're amazing musicians and great people to be around. One of my favorite musicians actually is a guy I actually met him through the show, and he is he's in this. Well, he used to be in this bluegrass band, and now he plays with his brother. He's a twin as well as me. We're both twins, but his name is George Clements. He's this amazing guitar player and singer, and he plays with his brother Charles, who's an upright bassist. And it's really gratifying for me as a guitarist and a vocalist to be in the same role as a guitarist and vocalist like George Clements, because George Clements is world class,
Yeah. Well, slouch yourself.
Well, I do my best.
No, you do really good. I mean, you got on your website, you have links to all your videos, and I was going through your videos. You've had over 1 million streams, when you combine all your videos. I mean, that's a lot
I
of
just
streams.
found that out, actually. Yeah, I think I just hit it. My parents told me that, and I don't know how they figured it out before I did, but somehow they did. And it was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, one video alone has 530 plus thousand streams.
So that bot works? Awesome.
Yeah, man, that bot's doing great things. That gets me hooked up.
Taylor, I have to tell you, leading up to this, after Jerry introduced us and listening to you on the other podcast and on theirs, it's Another Sunday Podcast. I was really, really excited because you are more than just musical. You're artistic, you're creative, you are musical, and you do a lot of acting. I imagine your role as Paul Simon is a little bit of both acting and playing music. How do you prepare yourself for that?
Well, the biggest thing, of course, I mean, when I first stepped into the role, was learning all of the guitar parts. Because that's Paul Simon's thing. He's got a great voice. The art's kind of known as the voice, but he's this unbelievable, groundbreaking fingerstyle guitar player. And when I first started with the show, I was fine. I was good. But that show made me a much better guitar player and, opened up a whole world of writing that I was able to do after playing in that role. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. And you talk about the fingering style of Simon. Were you of that style before you took the role on, and did you have to really grow into that?
You have to have a certain foundation to be able to even audition for a show like that. So I knew some stuff, but there are a couple of specific techniques that he wrote a lot of songs with what's called a Travis picking, which is a right hand technique. It's very like folk and bluegrass based. I knew fingerstyle guitar in air quotes, but I hadn't learned how to Travis pick yet. And it was actually, learning that show, but then also one of the other musicians on the tour is another great musician, Joshua Lee Turner, who's kind of been sort of a mentor, big brother of mine in music, in songwriting. He also engineered and produced my second album. He would take me aside and be like, "Hey, Taylor, like, here's this thing about Paul Simon. Here's this thing about Paul Simon." He kind of like shepherded my right hand technique into playing more like Paul Simon, which is so helpful. I now can play with a thumb pick, which is very classic 1960s fingerstyle guitar technique.
Interesting.
Yeah. Have you ever met either Simon or Garfunkel?
I haven't, although I have kind of a funny story that relates to that question. Through the Simon and Garfunkel story, I had the pleasure of meeting the gentleman who used to work as the touring lighting designer for Jackson Browne, who's a hero of mine. And so this friend of mine invited me to go see a concert of Jackson Browne's at the Beacon. Jackson plays every year at a theater here in the Upper West Side. And when I went to see that show, I ended up sitting next to Paul Simon's assistant, who was not happy to learn that I played Paul Simon in the Simon and Garfunkel story. We were having a nice conversation. She asked, "What do I do?" And I was like, "Well, my friend brought me here. We met on this touring show." And she's like, "What's a touring show?" I was like, "Oh, it's the Simon and Garfunkel story." And she was like, "Oh, okay." and
that was it.
And we enjoyed the concert in silence.
One of those awkward moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's funny you say Jackson Browne, because on my way in here, I had your version of Loadout, which Jerry actually turned me on to, and I was very impressed. You hit it.
Thank you.
You hit it. Yeah. What do you get up your sleeve today? You get your six string with you, or do you think you could?
I do.
Yeah. So I
always keep it nearby.
Okay, cool. You play a lot of originals, and you also do covers. So let's your pick. You tell us what you want to get, play for the fans of Musicians and Beyond. We've actually hit 17 countries, so this broadcast is going worldwide. Yeah, we're big time. I mean, you're really at the pinnacle of your career now with John Sarabian and Mark Lawhorn.
That's amazing. Congratulations, you guys.
Oh, thanks.
Well, all this talk of Jackson Browne, so when we recorded the Loadout, there's a video online, and I'm sure you guys have seen, doing your deep dive research. But you'll notice that I'm not playing an instrument, because I just sang that and the band played it. But that being said, I can play you another Jackson Browne song if you're game.
Absolutely.
This is one of my favorites. All right. I love this one. I got a funny story about this song too. I'll tell it really quick before I get into it. The first time I heard this song, it was not the Jackson Browne version. It was a cover It's done by this vocalist, but she has this kind of like real like lo-fi like, well, I've been out walking, and I thought that was the original song. And then I started listening to Jackson Browne, heard this version on his album, and I was like, damn, Jackson Browne, that's a nice cover of this song. Really good. Very much into it. And then I learned that he wrote it, and I was like, that makes sense.
Gotcha.
All right, yeah, and this is a Jackson Browne song, one of my favorites.
Well, I've been out walking. I don't do too much talking these days. These days I sit on cornerstones and count the time in quarter tones to 10. And I had a lover, but it's so hard to risk another these days. These days I seem to think a lot about the things that I forgot to do for you. And all the time I had the chance to. Well, I keep on moving. Things are bound to be improving these days. One of these days. These days I sit on cornerstones and count the time in quarter stones to 10, my friend. Don't confront me with my failures. I had not forgotten them. Oh man, my pleasure.
That was fantastic. Coming to us from Upper Manhattan, New York, that was Taylor Bloom. Taylor, thanks, man. How do people find?
Man, my pleasure.
Oh, cool. It's great that you're here. How do people find like all the info on you? Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff.
Yeah, if you search for me on YouTube, Taylor Bloom, you'll find me. You can find me on Instagram, Taylor Bloom NYC. And I also have a website, which is also TaylorBloomNYC.com. And there's, all my videos are basically linked through all of those different platforms. So whatever way you want to get in contact, you can get in contact. You can also find me on Spotify. Both my albums are on there. Yeah, there's lots and lots of stuff to look at and listen to.
As John mentioned earlier, you've had a lot of success on YouTube. Part of that is your consistency. You're posting, how often on YouTube do you post a new song or a new video?
Well, at the height, I was trying to post once a week. That got to be a little intense.
Hard.
So I ended up doing like once every 2 weeks.
Excellent.
Yeah. And then I haven't posted in a little while now because back in March, I was actually on tour with the Simon & Garfunkel Story, and I sustained a pretty serious vocal injury that required my long-term rest vocally, basically. Yeah. So I'm pretty much healed now, but I have yet to get back into the swing of producing videos on a regular basis. Okay. But that's definitely in the future, though. So
you're feeling a lot better, though? You've recovered all the way?
Yes. Fortunately, it wasn't the injury wasn't anything permanent. It was just, kind of like a warning sign to take it easy.
Yeah. Now, outside of the show on the road, Who else are you playing with? Do you have a band that you play with?
Well, my favorite band to play with is the band from the Simon and Garfunkel story. Actually, they're the band that
That's
plays on
awesome.
both my albums, and it just shows how great a group of musicians they are. That they're just the best. I mean, they're world class. Here in the city, there's a few different folks that I'll collaborate with on occasion. But I don't have anything consistent here like other musicians I like to play with. It's a bummer because my favorite band to play with all live in San Diego. So.
Yeah. And you're over there in New York. So your two albums, one of them is called Heading to Ohio, and your other one is My Father Before Me.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, and
released them both in the same year.
Awesome. Because of COVID, right? You had a little extra time on your hands, is that right?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, my partner Scout and I were living in Virginia with our folks, and I had a lot of time on my hands. And I was walking the dog one day, and I was like, God damn it, I got to record an album. Shoot. Because I knew it was going to be a huge amount of work. And of course, it turned out to be so fun. Yeah. But just on that walk, I was like, darn it, I got to do it.
And you're getting some success out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had a lot of positive response from it. It's been really nice. People really seem to like the music. And I would say the second album, even though it was released within the same calendar year, it already took a huge step forward from what we did on the first album, because the first record was recorded entirely in isolation. Everyone was recording their own material, sending it in. I'd have to listen to it, give notes, send ideas back. They would take it a week later and record it some more, do some more takes and some more passes. And then all of that would be sent to the engineer, who at the time was Josh Turner. He was the one who ended up mixing the record. And that was a laborious process. It took us almost a year to just record it and get it done. And then the second record that we did, we released it in the same year, but we sort of recorded it, only over a few months. And that was a lot more planning. We were able to meet in person. That video of the Loadout, that's a video that takes place. That was the last thing we recorded in the studio that we rented in San Diego to record the album. So Josh and I recorded my stuff, and then we flew out to San Diego, rented a studio for 3 days. And this band played that whole record. I think they recorded 10 songs in 3 days. Unbelievable. Like how they do a take, and it was perfect. And it was just a matter of like, can you play this with this kind of feel, but not a bad note in any of those takes.
Yeah.
So it was a real pleasure to work on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a good collaboration of musicians and good collaboration of music.
Absolutely. What are you working on now? Current projects? Anything going on in the background?
Well, in the acting side of my life, I'm very, very busy auditioning all the time, which is great. Like that's just that's a real privilege for me to be back in the place. The industry is at a period where we're starting to really ramp things back up, and I'm lucky that I'm sort of getting right in at the forefront, auditioning and stuff. Musically speaking, part of the reason that I haven't gotten back to posting videos yet is because I've been writing a lot, putting a lot of my creative musical energy into song creation rather than like recording covers for YouTube. So I'm hoping, I would very much like to record another album at some point in the next year or two. That's just a matter of funding and finance, because it's not inexpensive to do. But it is also pretty amazing how little money we were able to make these albums for. So, compared to what it normally takes to produce a full length.
Putting out an album, what's
that?
the most expensive part for you when you're putting it out there? What costs the most? Studio time, engineers? What's it come down to?
The priciest thing is the personnel, because. And I wasn't able to pay these musicians half of what they're worth because they're so good.
Good for you.
But you also don't want to stiff anybody. You don't want to ask anybody, hey, can you do me this favor and devote months of your life to working on writing parts for my record? That and paying for a good engineer. Josh Turner was pulling double duty for me as a producer and as the engineer. Wow. And so the most expensive part is making sure that your team is compensated. But that's also the best place to put your money, because they completely made those records. I mean, I'm so proud of those records, especially the second one, because that one felt a lot more like a collaboration. We were all together in the studio playing and watching Josh at the helm of that ship was really, really fun. But cool. Yeah, definitely the personnel is the most expensive part in my experience.
Okay.
Cool. It's money well spent. I mean, you really came out with an
Amen.
incredible product,
Great product, yeah.
you know, and you've been on a couple
Thanks,
of
guys.
top of the notch podcasts lately. You're on with us and you were on with Jerry not too long ago. So
You know, just to tell you,
And I have fun every time.
it doesn't get any better than that, does it, kid?
Taylor, there's a local comedian up here in Boston, and he's been all over the world. He's played, some of the biggest clubs, and he's got worldwide recognition. And I saw him up in a place on Route 1 here, and he said, "Yeah, here I am at the pinnacle of my career in an attic of a Chinese food restaurant." He was at the Kowloon, Steve Sweeney, and so that must be how you feel right now being on with us.
No. But it's true that artists we take any opportunity we can to play.
Yeah. No, and we know how busy you are, and we're thrilled that you came on with us. I mean, I read something about you with the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You were Frankenfurter?
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. One of my storied roles. Yeah, Dr. Frankenfurter. I'll never forget. That was probably the most fun I've ever had performing, actually. Let me tell you, you don't know the joy of strutting on stage until you strut on stage in high heels. That is really the pinnacle.
Well, when we put this out, we're going to put that as your profile picture of you in the high heels.
I think Jerry has
You'll
something to
get
say.
a million views.
Didn't I see you in those high heels last time I was in New York?
I don't know. Did you?
I don't know, it's a blur.
I don't think I would venture out of the house with them just because they're so easy to fall off.
I'm
I don't
just
wanna injure
kidding. I've been
myself.
sitting here quietly.
Let me ask you, Taylor. I'm sorry, John, to cut in. You were talking about the most fun you had on stage was doing that. What's been your favorite part to play in play, or on stage, or in a show?
That's a great question. I mean, I have some favorite roles for sure. Well, my very favorite musical that I've been in a lot of musicals. My very favorite musical I've ever been in is this show called Spring Awakening. And I've been in it twice, different productions, and I played different roles. And it's a show that's about these kids who are like brought up in this really conservative, sort of like shame-based environment, and everything kind of falls apart. But it's written. The music of the musical is written by this guy named Duncan Sheik, who is an amazing composer. He had a hit back in I think it was the early 2000s called "She Runs Away." So, and that's a beautiful musical. I love that. But also, in all honesty, Dr. Frankenfurter was a lot of fun.
I like it.
Yeah, they put on a good show.
Let me ask you, Taylor, what's the best part of doing music? Do you like to be on the road? Do you like to be in maybe at like a house show where you're performing at one location? What's the best part of performing for you?
I really love being on tour. For something about that lifestyle I really enjoy. I like being in a new place every day. It's a nice balance of habit and new experience, because you're going to a new place every day. You're like, I got to find a place to get coffee here. I got to find a place to get lunch or whatever. But you're also coming back to the bus every night. You're playing the same show. You're on the road with the same people, and those people become like this strange family that you love to hang out with. I love that, and I also love what's been really interesting. Touring around with the Simon and Garfunkel story is seeing how different communities respond to the show differently, because the audiences in Iowa behave very differently than the audiences in Florida, and they behave very differently than the audiences in Red Deer, Alberta. And that's fun. That's cool. That's interesting to see how different parts of the country, and I guess the continent, because we did play in Canada, how they all behave differently in the audience. That's really fun to watch.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you point out.
And one of the things that I'll jump in real quick is I was lucky enough to travel down to southern Alabama on a whole other mission, and they just happened to be, the Simon and Garfunkel story happened to be there. And one of the things I know, when I go to a concert, you can usually tell if the band's into it, and the music, of course, who doesn't like Simon and Garfunkel, right? But you could definitely tell that this was a team of musicians that absolutely adored each other on stage. They knew every move, because that's what I look for, especially knowing some of the guys, that's what I look for. And they could read each other, and they read the audience, and it was was an awesome show. I know he said at the beginning that they're all great musicians, and they are. Taylor and Ben, who was Art in this particular show, had such a chemistry together, and I think you typically didn't. Paul's always played with the same Art. Art's always played with the same Paul. But you just saw the energy up there. It was amazing to watch the performance, and he did such a great job. The whole show, and the audience. I actually talked to the audience in the intermission, and was getting feedback before I told anybody that I knew who they were, and it was remarkable. So, and that's important, and that's what that band does. That's what Taylor does, and anything that he's done, whether it's his YouTube stuff or Simon and Garfunkel story or the two albums. He's amazing.
Wow. You're not currently touring with the Simon and Garfunkel, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's
the
correct.
show's actually on hiatus right now. They're coming back next calendar
Yeah,
year.
because they're coming to our area March 4th of 2023, and we were hoping to see you on stage.
I won't be there, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah. My time with the Simon and Garfunkel story has come to a close.
Okay, well, you're going
to... Very amicably. Yeah, it's just been I've been on the road with them for 5 years, so it's time to move on.
No, I get it. It's time. You're going to open up a bigger and better chapter.
Hopefully. Here's hoping.
You've written a good
cross your
story.
fingers that George Clements is playing there when they come in March, because that would be a pleasure. He's amazing.
Well, I'm going to have to check it out. Definitely have to check it out.
Taylor, you talked about how you're doing a lot of writing and spending time being a little bit more creative, putting pen to paper. Is there anything that you've written recently that no one's heard that you could play today?
Ooh, sure. That's actually I could definitely do that. Let me, because it's very new, I got to pull up some lyrics to make sure I don't forget anything here. Okay, hold on. This is one of the ways that I keep busy when I am on the road with the Simon and Garfunkel story is songwriting. So this is something that I started on my last tour with the Simon and Garfunkel story. I think we were in Texas. Pretty sure we were in Texas. And I finished it just recently. It's a little love song here. Way back when the moon was just a little rock there in the middle of the southern sky. Weren't no folks, no people who could disrupt all the peace that had developed on the pastures high. Weren't no whiskey, nor no late night roustabouting, nor no middle-agers doubting every choice they made. Weren't no you and me, and so I ain't sure what the point was. Ain't much world without the two of us here anyway. Anyway, I just called to say New York City got all them stoplights in the subway, a tiny island where the world was never wider. But more than this, and something most people don't realize, is that you live there, so all the lights burn brighter. Right or wrong, I just thought we could use a song. What a wonder that out of all these bits of matter, all these morons and mad hatters that have come our way, we found each other. and have held on sweetly singing. No matter what the years are bringing, I know we're okay anyway. I just called to say hello.
Another good one.
Very well done. Very well
Very
done.
well done.
Beautiful.
I like your
Thanks,
style
guys.
of your singing songwriting style is really second to none.
Very,
It's a
very,
great job.
very reminiscent of Jackson Browne and others. Who else have been influences in your musical path?
Well, as an early music listener, you know, in the backseat of the car, and mom and dad are playing music up front. We had a lot of Cat Stevens and James Taylor on. And then a few years after that, I started listening to some Irish folk singer-songwriters. There's these two guys, Glenn Hansard is one, and Damien Rice is another. They write really, like, sort of heart-wrenching lyrics, and like really big. They have their orchestrational style is like they'll start like the beginning of a song is teeny tiny, like just vocals and guitar, and then it'll grow and have like strings and a huge band and everything. It's very exciting. And then more recent influences. Somehow, despite listening to James Taylor and Joni Mitchell and then when I was a kid, I barely listened to Simon & Garfunkel. So then listening to Simon & Garfunkel to start working on this show was like a whole new, journey for me, delving into that music. And then, I came to Jackson Browne later in life. 2019, I think, was when I started listening to Jackson Browne. And he was just huge for me. Huge.
So you like a little bit of everything.
Yeah, the stuff I tend to not like is the stuff that all my friends seem to like. I listen to a lot of Jackson Browne.
Yeah.
Artists that have been really getting me lately, though, there's this new singer-songwriter I've been loving. Her name is Lizzie McAlpine. And then a lot of her music is produced by this guy named Jacob Collier, who's like a verifiable musical genius. If you want to see some cool stuff, look up Jacob Collier on YouTube. It's insane what he's doing. And of course, I've been a John Mayer fan for the longest time.
Sure.
That guy, his songwriting blows me away. And anyone who knows anything about guitar knows that he's one of the greatest guitar players. So I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah,
as a
truly
musician.
amazing musician for sure.
We think you're pretty special too. And for the audience listening, if you want to find him, TaylorBloomNYC.com. Make sure you get over there, check out his videos, check out what he's doing, and follow him on YouTube. There's some great stuff there.
Yeah, he's doing some great stuff, Mark. Where do you think we're going to see him in 10 years?
I wonder where he thinks he's going to be in 10 years.
Yeah, Taylor, in 10
Speaking
years.
of a segue.
Yeah, where are you going to be?
10 years from now, I'm gonna be in a position financially to take my band on a tour that I pay for out of my own pocket, just for fun. Playing my music, playing some covers. That's what I want to be doing in 10 years.
That's awesome.
And remember, we have a deal.
We do have a deal.
That's right. When you're up there receiving that Grammy and that Oscar, you're going to give me a ticket to the theater, right?
You're my plus one, Jerry.
And you're going to thank Musicians and Beyond for getting you where you are?
Absolutely. It wouldn't be where I am.
So,
I just want to say thanks to you guys so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you, Jerry, for connecting me to these two fine fellows. I've had a lot of fun today.
yeah.
They're great. They're teaching me how to do a podcast.
Yeah. Actually, Jerry was one of the first people that we reached out to when we started it, and he held our hand and walked through, and now we bounce a lot of things off each other, and we're both very successful. We've both been played all around the world. And, it's because of people like you that make us sound good.
Taylor, all you got to do is listen to the way Jerry framed that. He said, they're teaching me how to do a podcast. What he really meant was we show him what not to do, and he learns from that. we read right through the lines, Jerry.
Yeah, no,
Am I that transparent?
we have Taylor Bloom StreamYarding from New York into Musicians and Beyond. Yeah, and we had another special guest, Jerry Davila from one of the world's best podcasts out there. So he broke into the studio and kind of, I'd say photo bombed, but podcast bombed our podcast with
Pod bombed. He pod bombed.
with Taylor. Yeah, he pod bombed
Pod
us.
bomb. That's a new word.
We just
It'll be in Merriam-Webster
Call
next
up
year.
Funk and Wagnalls.
yeah. So
Thanks for having me.
So, Taylor, we want to thank you for being on. We wish you success. You are a tremendous person. You got some great talents. You're really working on your acting career, and we're wishing the best for you. And I think, we're going to hear more of you. But your musical career isn't anything to bat an eyelash at either. It's, you're really doing good things. So thanks for taking your time, coming on, sharing your stories. We had a great time.
Yeah, and we want to thank you. A lot of times we end the show by, we learn a lot about people going through this, and it's a journey for us, and we meet a lot of people, and we like to think that at the end of every podcast we've gained a new friend. So from our perspective, we'd like to say thank you for being our friend.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to have met you.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. And like Mark said, I want to thank you for being our friend, too.
Here he goes again, stealing my lines.
I love stealing his lines. He gets all defensive because he made it up, and then I do it, and he does this
This
thing.
this is what it must be like having Art across the way on the stage with
He
you.
takes his ball, and he goes home, and he's like, John, you did it again. Could you stop?
Taylor, thank you very much for coming in today.
Thanks,
We hope
buddy.
you had a fun time with us. We know we had enjoyed your company, and we're looking forward to following your career and seeing more things in the future.
Keep
Thanks
up the
so
good
much,
work.
guys.
Keep up the good work. Taylor Bloom, thank you.